All right, welcome to another audio edition of TennisVictory.com. We are honored and privileged to have with us today to interview John Carpenter. And John Carpenter has been a professional tennis player and has coached for over 30 years. He is currently the director of the Modern Tennis Methodology Coaching Academy, and has just a wealth of knowledge on everything from stroke production to teaching tennis in the United States, and John, welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm a little hoarse today from giving tennis lessons in the wind, shouting across the court, but I think I can hold up here.
No, you sound perfectly good to me, and sometimes you got to whip them into shape the best way how, and if that's hollering a little bit, then that's hollering a little bit. Can you explain kind of what the modern tennis methodology is for our listeners who may not know?
Well, modern tennis methodology was first introduced by a then 28-year-old Argentinian named Oscar Wegner in 1968, coaching in Beverly Hills. Essentially what modern tennis methodology, or MTM as it's come to be known by the acronym, it's a synthesis of the great teaching methods focusing on technique as opposed to tactics from the last 100 years that have been proven to get optimal results. It differs from other tennis methods in that it uses a simple play-by-feel appealing to sensory mechanisms of the student rather than complicated mechanics. And it uses the laws of physics to produce correct biomechanically efficient movements used by nearly all professional tennis players when they play their best. And the idea is that you teach these from the very first strokes, whether they be 6 years old or 60 years old. Its strength is the power of simplicity and the focus on as few as mechanics as possible, which allows the person's natural talent to take over without the introduction of contradictory data that often confuses or inhibits a person's natural talent. It's essentially very minimalist, very simple, and very unorthodox in that as a tennis coach, I allow the player to take responsibility for their athletic potential, first by teaching them natural movement versus complicated pattern movement, and then guide them carefully according to the correct laws of how to move efficiently, also teaching to a tennis ball. I've been coaching for 30 years. I've been coaching this method exclusively for 5 years. I have tested it versus every publicly touted methodology out there and discovered, as Oscar Wegner claims, it gets the optimal results across the largest number of people.
How did that personally become involved with this method specifically?
Well, I first ignored Oscar's 1989 book because Tennis Magazine panned it. And, I depended on them to tell me, what was the best book.
Authority.
Well, you would think. In 1993, he came out with a second book, this time with Bud Collins, the game's a historian and probably as knowledgeable about anybody can be about tennis. And he was touting Oscar Wegner and even nicknamed Well, after that book came out, of course I asked about it.
What was the name of that book?
You Can Play Better Tennis in 2 Hours. You
Gotcha.
Can Play Tennis in 2 Hours. The first one was Tennis in 2 Hours. The second one was You Can Play Tennis in 2 Hours, with Bud Collins on the cover with Oscar. And this book really caused quite a stir because this one was in all the stores. It was heavily touted for a while. It's never been reviewed to this day by any tennis magazine. And yet I was told in 1993 at a USPTA conference that experts pending research would likely prove Oscar's claims had no real merit. And basically, after teaching full-time in 2001 and 2002, barely making a good living mimicking the so-called tennis masters, word for word to my students, a fellow coach said, just get master strokes 1 and 2, and I'd be a great coach. And curious, I got master strokes 1 and 2, and I started mixing MTM with my conventional closed stance forehand teaching, but noticed my students preferred to hit open stance forehands when given a choice. And they quickly hit better when I didn't focus on the feet. This didn't make any sense to me. Footwork was one of the foundations, the fundamentals of tennis teaching. So I ordered the complete set of videos and his book, and then I started teaching exactly per the progressions on the videos, and suddenly every student in the last 5 years has not only wanted to take more lessons because tennis was now simple, but they could rally back and forth like never before, regardless of their athletic ability. I also worked with a very fine tennis coach named Andy Davis, who had worked personally for the legendary Harry Hopman in Australia, and later as Rick Macy's. And Andy and I literally went through 25 years of USPTA and tennis magazine, countless books, videos, and we realized that MTM tied all the great teaching threads in one simple teaching methodology.